Hello there. We are your hosts Vivek and Pavitra from the Agile Coach podcast. In this podcast, we bring fresh perspectives to you through our interviews with thought leaders in agile coaching, facilitation, business analysis, and product management roles. Enjoy. Hey everybody, today we have Brian in the podcast tonight. He's a very special guest. Brian is an award-winning resume writer. We've known Brian from LinkedIn. He's a LinkedIn influencer. He has over 200,000, more than 200,000 followers on LinkedIn, and has helped over thousands of people. His resume template has been downloaded over 100,000 times. We're really excited for this conversation, Brian. Give us a little bit more about your intro, Brian.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. To the two of you, Pavitra, Vivek, and to everyone listening, watching, appreciate you being here. I've been in tech for 28 years. My parents asked me when I was 11 years old, what do you want to do for a living? And I went into tech when I was 13 years old. I started learning. Yeah, believe it. So I went into a middle school and high school that is highly technical, the number one in my country. I am originally from Argentina. I live in North America now, in Canada. And I learned how to do software development on paper, algorithms and pseudocode, C++, Pascal, assembly, Visual Basic, Visual Fox Pro, Access, you name it. And for many, many years, I was a software developer, full stack software developer, doing programs, applications, doing websites. And then along the way, I realized that as much as I loved seeing code compile, and I was very particular, very, detail-oriented with my pixels. I loved everything just fitting nicely and working really well, taking a lot of pride in the art of coding. I love building meaningful relationships with people. I love my human interactions. But I didn't want to lose my technical know-how, all my expertise that I had acquired. So I went into business analysis, and I was consulting for different industries. And then after that, I went and I got certified as a certified Scrum Product Owner, as a CSPO. And I worked in the government, in the public sector, in multinationals, startups, and everything in between. And that's it. That's my career in a nutshell.
Awesome. Brian, so you've had this software engineering background, and then you go into business analysis, product ownership. You have had a conversation after you've done really well, and then you choose to go into helping people write better resumes, do better branding, and really create this awesome transformation for getting people multiple interviews, multiple job offers. So walk us about, how did you get into the business of helping people get jobs?
I'm glad you asked. So basically, it was a combination of two things. The first one is that I realized that I was wasting a lot of time, personal time. If you ever find yourself doom scrolling on Instagram or Facebook or whatnot, I was doing the same thing as everybody else. Okay. The second thing was, I was in a really good place professionally and personally. I had gotten married and, I wanted to build a family. And I was like, I'm in a really good place. And I feel like I want to give back to society, pay it forward, help other people get to this good place that I am in. And somehow, I don't know, don't ask me how, I came across LinkedIn. I thought that LinkedIn was a place where to just store my resume. And then I see that there's a social media platform behind it where people are actually commenting and liking. And I was like, okay, don't ask me if I had a plan. I didn't know exactly how I was going to use it or what for, but I was like, let me first start hanging out in the place that is deemed or considered the most professional social media platform of all for professionals like myself. And then maybe I will have more clarity. As I spent some time on LinkedIn, I started noticing I'm very observant and I find patterns. And we can talk about these patterns later with regards to resume writing. Yeah. I was like, a lot of people are complaining about not landing interviews and not receiving job offers. And I was like, I've never faced these issues before. I've had it pretty easy throughout my career. So I started just sharing what I knew with others to try to empower others to get them out of their misery. And then when I started sharing these things with others, they were like, I never heard about these things before. And I noticed that I had a different approach at doing things. And the more I helped people, professionals, senior tech professionals and executives, the more I learned about what they were struggling with, and the more people who came to me, and the more fulfillment I found, and the more fulfillment I found, the more people I wanted to help. So it all started from wanting to pay it forward and give back to society, make a real positive impact.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I can go here. So I mean, as you talk to people, I'm sure you talk to thousands of people. The common thing, even I hear quite a bit, is I'm just struggling to get interviews, right? And so why do you think most of the job seekers are just really struggling to even land interviews?
So, of course, if I tried to answer this 7 years ago when I first started doing this, I wouldn't have necessarily the clarity that I have today, or that I acquired over the years. But looking back now, it's very simple to address this. The big question is, what is it that you are doing and doing incorrectly, or not necessarily doing, that prevents you from actually landing those interviews? So a lot of people professionals believe that, okay, I need to get my resume right. And then with that resume right, I will be able to land interviews. It's not just quite. You do need to get your resume right, okay? Even though LinkedIn doesn't care about your resume, we can talk about that in another moment, you still need to get your resume right, yes? But that's just one element, one piece of the puzzle. What else is there? So one is your resume. The second question is, what are you writing on your resume? We'll talk about this in a moment as well. What are you writing? Can the hiring software, the technology that is in between you and the employers, can it actually read the contents of your resume both entirely and accurately? Next, what about your social media presence, your LinkedIn profile, or any other profiles on any other job boards? Are you set up there? Are you set up correctly with the right contents, the right configuration? And what does anybody feel or think about you when they see your profile? Do you really stand out from the average applicant or not? Next, your ability to build meaningful relationships, to network, first of all, with the right people, okay, who can actually help you, and to build meaningful relationships. We live in a world where most people, they don't have attention span, or actually don't care to go out of their way because they don't have time to dedicate to anything else. They're just too busy with themselves. So if you reach out to the right person with the right message, will they actually go out of their way for you and help you? And the next thing is, how do you apply for jobs? Back in the day, not too long ago, we could just easy apply, right? If you know what easy apply, LinkedIn has it, Indeed has something similar called differently, but you can just easy apply. Back in the day, not too long ago, that used to work. Just take the lazy approach, just easy apply. When we mentor our mentees, we say, don't take the lazy approach anymore, because you will be relying on luck, hoping that something hits, that something sticks. Now you have to do more. You have to go out of your way and reach out to the employers, to the HR professionals, to the hiring managers, to the recruiters, with someone, and build a meaningful relationship so that you can get through for someone to actually notice you. So again, a resume, you need it. You must have the right resume. And we'll talk about the specifics on what it is that you need to do. But that's not the end all. There's so much more that you need to do to be able to land those interviews.
Right, let's talk about like the data part, right? Like how do you really build a resume where you're paying attention to data of like what companies are actually wanting? What's your process? How do you coach somebody through that?
Absolutely. So the one thing that I want everybody to keep in mind is that the best organizations out there, if not all of them, are making decisions based off data, right? Data guides our decisions. One of the problems that I see, that I've observed, is that professionals end up writing their resumes based off what they feel like writing. So I go home, I write my resume, right? And I feel like writing this because I'm super proud of this, and I just really want to share this other thing. The question is, and I want you to start questioning yourself and every single thing that you do throughout the entire job application and hiring process, why? Why am I doing this? Does it make any sense? What I'm challenging you to do is quite hard when you are in the moment and you don't know any better. But anything that requires your time and your attention, I ask you, I challenge you to please question it. Does it make any sense? Let's go back to the basics. Communication 101. Okay? You have a sender, you have a receiver. If I wanted to listen to me and to understand what I'm saying, I have to say the things that I believe you care to listen to. You may have heard over the years that recruiters, HR professionals, hiring managers spend on average about 6 or 7 seconds looking at a resume before they make the decision whether to continue or discard it, ignore it, trash it, whatever, reject it. So you have a very short amount of time to make an impact. The big question is, what are you going to write? What can you possibly do for them to want to continue reading? And when they continue reading your resume, to want to continue reading your resume. So what are you writing? So to answer to your question, Vivek, the contents that you write on your resume cannot be based off what you feel like writing. They must be based off what the market is looking for today. Not a year ago, not 5 years ago. The market changes, evolves for any given role. So the question is, what is the market looking for today? So in order to understand that, you need to understand what the market is looking for and assess or compare multiple job postings and start to find patterns. What do they have in common? When I look for this particular job, and when I say a job, I mean a job under a specific role. Let's say product owner. A product owner is a product owner. It doesn't matter whether it is for company A, B, C, D, E, or F. A product owner is a product owner. What I want to understand is how different organizations have written the job posting for a product owner. Why? Because, to address your question, in order to get through the hiring software, we need to have the right keywords. Because the hiring software, that's how it evaluates us. That's how it ranks us. So if we don't have the keywords that the hiring software is looking for, expecting for that particular job, we may not even be shown to the hiring manager, to the HR professional, to the recruiter. No one might even see the application. Even though it's in the system, it's ranked low or on a separate list. So what do we need to do is we need to understand what are the keywords that are across all jobs in the market and leverage them as a reference to write a single version of your resume for all jobs. Do you want to know why a single resume?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. You're nodding. Okay. So here's the thing. Another aspect that I didn't mention before, but that everybody needs to know, you have to apply fast. If you're not applying, if you've noticed, anytime that you come to a job posting, within minutes, there are dozens, if not hundreds of applicants. If you're not applying fast, you will be one of the hundreds that have applied. And here's the thing, recruiters will not spend forever. They're not going to, or employers in general, they are not going to look at every single applicant. It's very rare. Yes, you will find the odd person, weird person on LinkedIn that says, I look at every single applicant. No, they don't. They're just saying. And even if they do, they are just in the minority. The vast majority of employers, they don't evaluate every single applicant. They allocate a certain amount of time where they look at X number of applicants on the list, and then they decide who they want to pre-screen. So there might be 500 applicants for any given job, but they're not necessarily going to go through the 500. They might go through 30 and find that they want to interview these 5. So what happens with the other 470? They have never even been looked at. That's why you need to apply fast. But there's more. Sound like Steve Jobs now. But there's more. So how can you have multiple versions of your resume when you can only have a single version of your LinkedIn profile? You're constantly tailoring your resume for this job, for that job. And then your LinkedIn profile says something that doesn't necessarily match what you said on your resume. And then you end up raising red flags. And those red flags can backfire prior to the interview or prior to the pre-screening, where they realize this doesn't add up, during the pre-screening, during the interview, during the negotiation, during the background check. At some point, those red flags will come up. So you want to have just one story. The other challenge that professionals have, and I'll finish with this for now, is that a lot of professionals make the mistake of applying to multiple roles. Okay, as I was mentioning before, throughout my career, I've been a full stack developer, a business analyst, and a product owner. Anytime that I wanted to switch jobs, I had clarity in terms of what it is that I wanted to do as my next career opportunity. So with that clarity, I didn't apply to just any job. When I speak to a lot of professionals and I ask them on purpose, which job titles are you applying for? They tell me, I'm applying for this, I'm applying for this, I'm applying for this, I'm applying for this. I said, well, there you have your first problem. The first problem is that you're applying to a whole bunch of different jobs or roles. So which one do you really want? The one that I really want is this one. Well, the problem is multifold, that you're confusing everybody, all employers out there, and you're confusing yourself as well. Because you're applying to a whole bunch of roles that you're not really interested in. And the problem is that if you manage to end up getting one of those other roles that you're not really interested in, you're not going to be happy or fulfilled. And eventually, 2, 3, 6 months down the road, you will have to go through this entire job switch all over again because you're like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. So have clarity, decide which job you want, which role, understand what the market is looking for, have the right resume, the right LinkedIn profile, the right networking skills to build meaningful relationships, and the right job application strategy, and you will be able to land a ton of interviews for that particular role. Let me pause for a moment. Okay.
Yeah, Brian. So how I'm processing this is if I am a aspiring product owner, what I want to go is I want to go and really look at what are hiring managers across the board looking for in a product owner role. So I want to use all the data that I see in the actual job description and write one resume that has all those keywords and really be strategic about what I want to communicate in the resume. And something I really enjoyed what you said is like you're writing the resume for the hiring managers or somebody who's posting the job, right? And your other goal is also to get past the resume software or ATS. So you're writing with that intent, and really what your resume and your LinkedIn, it's more of a marketing piece than just a resume.
Yeah. So, yeah, you remind me of one more detail. As I mentioned, it's not rocket science, but it's not grade 1 math. Here's something that I also see constantly. A lot of professionals who reach out and they ask me, Brian, what do you see with my resume? Can you review my resume? Okay, I receive maybe 8 to 10 professionals every single day with this exact approach. Others ask me other things. And here's the thing. I can take a look at a resume, and in a millisecond, I'm not exaggerating, I look at it and I know whether the hiring software, and there are more than 200, whether the hiring software will be able to read it both completely and accurately. What I don't know, and I tell people this because I believe in being truthful and transparent, what I don't know is whether the contents and the keywords written on that resume actually represent what the market is looking for without a prior analysis. So I can tell you whether you have grammar or syntax mistakes. Of course, I know how to write in English and properly, right? I've been living here for 21 years. I know, and I take a lot of pride in my communication skills. Hopefully everybody agrees. I can tell those things. I can see if there are inconsistencies in your resume. Those things are very apparent. Now, when you're applying for this particular role in this particular industry, and you write it beautifully, I can tell you it looks really good, it looks really professional, but I just don't know whether you're hitting the mark on every single keyword and the content around those keywords to be able to land the interviews. So this is not about just stuffing the resume with as many keywords as I can. You have to be able to speak about them and in the right order. And this is something that I haven't addressed yet or I haven't mentioned yet. It's not just about understanding what the market is looking for, but understanding in which order you should be writing those bullet points and how to write your summary. Because again, you have 6 to 7 seconds to be able to captivate them, their attention. So what do you write on that first bullet point? How do you know what goes onto the first one, what goes onto the second one, what goes onto the third one? How do you know? Is it a guessing game? No, it's not a guessing game. The beauty about this is that there's no guessing. When you do the analysis of what the market is looking for, and you weigh each one of these basic qualifications and preferred qualifications against each other, then you start to understand, I see a pattern here, that it should be the first, or that is the first bullet point. This other one is the second one. This one is the third one. Because it's what the employers actually want to read in the specific order in which they want to read it. You might be saying the right thing at the bottom of the list of bullet points. There's a chance that the employer will not even get to that last bullet point.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought about that, so that's a learning point for me. So thank you.
Pleasure.
Brian, the next question that I have for you is, so there's a, when I'm applying, like, let's say I'm a new product owner or aspiring product owner or a product analyst, business analyst, right? There are certain things I know. I've done some of these things in my internship or project-based work, but then there are just some things that I don't know, right? So there's this uncertainty unknown out there. How do you recommend I think about and approach this uncertainty unknown? And how do you want me to also approach the kind of the jobs that I want to apply for?
Amazing. Great. Amazing. I love this question because a lot of people who are watching right now, they might be saying, "I make that mistake." So let me ask you a question. I will not answer a question with a question, but I want everybody to pay attention to this. Let me ask you, when you come across a job posting that you're not 100% qualified for, do you apply for it, or you're like, I'm missing that thing? You know what? I'll move on to the next one. A lot of people, not saying all of them, but a large percentage of applicants, they're like, I'll move on to the next one. What I want you to know is that the reason why our mentees land so many interviews is because they apply to every single job out there. This is twofold, two things that everybody needs to know. The first one is that we encourage our mentees who want to advance in their careers, again, senior tech professionals and executives who want to advance in their careers, to find a role that they are not 100% qualified for. The sweet spot should be about 60 to 80% qualified. If you're thinking 60 to 80%, like everybody else is going to beat me, everybody else is going to have an advantage, more experience, knowledge, skills, expertise, education. So here's what I want to question, and I want you to question this as well. Question every single thing that you do. If you're 100% qualified for the role, how are you going to grow? How are you going to be uncomfortable? How are you going to be challenged and entertained? You're going to find it boring. You're going to be bored out of your mind. You're going to be like, yes, for the first month or 2 or 3, while you get to know things, you'll be like, oh, this is great. But shortly after, you're going to be bored out of your mind. You will be like, oh, what am I doing? I'm not learning anything. And you know that this world right now, 2025 and beyond, is advancing at a very fast pace. Like every day there's another 50 GPTs of some sort. So, or AIs of some sort, or chips, or whatever it is. So ask yourself, how can you keep on challenging yourself to continue to advance? Now, 60 to 80% is the sweet spot. You will challenge yourself. Also, I want you to keep in mind that there are a lot of employers out there, hiring managers, who will not hire someone who is 100% qualified for the job. Basically, they feel intimidated by hiring someone that could potentially replace them. So, challenge yourself. Find something where you can find room to grow. And with regards to the basic and preferred qualifications, so to speak in everybody's terms, basic qualifications are the must-haves, okay? What you must bring to the job, and I'll address that in a moment. And the preferred qualifications are the nice-to-haves. These are like a bonus. If you also have these knowledge, skills, experience, expertise, or education, great. It's even better, okay? So they are not necessary. So here's the thing. I want to, how do you say, like mythbusters. I want to break this myth. You do not need to have 100% of the basic qualifications, the must-haves. In some cases, it might be about your education, your certifications, your knowledge, your skills, your expertise. They might even put it as the very first bullet point. You must have this. And you might not have it. So 2 things happen here. The first one is you need to ask yourself, is this the only organization that is asking for this particular must-have, for this particular basic qualification? If there's 1 out of the 10 that you selected, okay, it's only 1. Do you really need to go and invest so much time and effort and money, potentially upskilling to acquire that 1 skill? Not necessarily. I mean, 9 out of 10 are not asking for that thing. Now, if you find a pattern where it's like, oh my God, 8 out of 10 are actually asking for this basic qualification, then you have to ask yourself, do I care to actually go into this role? Again, remember that you're trying to move up. Do I care to go into this role? How much do I care? Now, I truly wholeheartedly believe that all the information of the world is at our fingertips. You have YouTube, you have Google, you have ChatGPT, you have so many other tools to be able to learn anything that you want to learn, right? You don't even have to pay for this information. The question is whether you put in the time to learn it and to be able to speak about it. You may not have had any experience working, doing that thing that you're missing, but you can still have knowledge. What I promise every single one of you is that there are frameworks, there are techniques, tactics to be able to sit in an interview and be able to get the job, the confirmation that the job is yours, even when you don't have the necessary knowledge, skills, experience, expertise, or education. Here's the way that I want you to think about this. When they bring you in for an interview, they are saying, basically, we see the value that you have, that you're able to bring to us. So the moment that they open the door and you're sitting with them, virtually or in person, they recognize that there's value in you. So all you have to do is build a meaningful relationship with them. Building meaningful relationships and networking is not about just networking to try to land the interviews. What you do with the person in front of you matters so much, especially when you're only 60 to 80% qualified for the job. Because the question is, if I don't have everything that everybody else has, what else can I bring to the table? I mean, we encourage you to put yourself in that situation of uncomfort. How can you really stand out from everyone else? What I want you to understand is that the interviews, and I didn't really want to go into this area, but interviews are not just about you talking about your professional experience. It's about the experience that you create for the person in front of you, for them to like you, trust you, remember you, believe in you, have the confidence that you can actually make a real difference, and that it will be a pleasure to work with you. So ask yourself, what do you do with that information? There's some expertise or experience that you don't have. You can still learn it. You may not be able to apply it yet, but at least have the knowledge. And during an interview, okay, moving on to the interviews aspect of it, of the hiring process, you can always tell them, look, I don't have necessarily that experience, but this is what I would do. Or you can ask them questions to validate some assumptions. Based off my prior experience and what I know about this is how I would do it. I have enough case studies to be able to share of professionals who were able to get the job without necessarily the experience that the employers were actually looking for.
Beautiful. Brian, I really resonate with what you shared, is especially for folks who don't have experience, right? What you're saying is like lead with what you have, right? Like your resourcefulness, your preparedness, you really showing up into the interview and giving them an experience, right? Like what's your creativity, right? I remember me being, fresh out of college and not having a lot of experience. What I had, though, even though if I didn't have the experience, I had massive amount of hunger, eagerness, a lot of preparedness. Like I really thought through the company, the mission, the values. I did research on the team members, on the product. And I also was able to show them the eagerness and the hunger by leaning into, like by really listening, taking notes. And even when they were asking me question, I really like what you said. If they brought you in an interview, they already see the value, right? Then you just have to follow through. So something that I did is my thing was to beat them with most of the question that I don't know with curiosity, right? Like asking great question and really intently listening. And even some of the things that I didn't know. There was one time I was interviewing for this SAP role, and I had some analyst experience, and they asked me like, okay, how would you rate yourself in SAP reporting instance? And what I did there is I just said, hey, I know about this module, I know about SAP, I don't know exactly about this module. I'm at about 2 or 3 at this point. But if you give me 2 hours with Google, back then we didn't have ChatGPT or any of these tools, I can get up to 8, and that's kind of the analyst I am who really takes pride on researching, leaning in, asking questions, taking help. So I was really communicating what I bring to the table. And I think that significantly helped me in that interview.
Thank you for sharing. I agree 100%. Showing curiosity and not trying to fool the interviewer, right? Because if they ask you a question, I mean, a lot of people believe that, oh, I tell them that they have the experience, but what happens if you get called out on that and they want to dig deeper and now they want to know your experience? Now, all of a sudden, very quickly, you lost their trust and respect for you. So we have a framework around this, which is don't try to fool them. They ask you a question that you don't feel 100% confident about. It's okay to say, actually, we encourage, please do tell them that you don't necessarily believe that you have the experience around this. However, you want to give it a shot, if that's okay with them. I promise you that they will allow you, they will encourage you to give it a shot. And the question is, when you give it a shot, how do you give that shot? How do you make the most out of this? So the question is, do you remain silent, right? They ask you something and you stay silent, thinking, and all of a sudden you just give an answer? Or do you think out loud? Do you ask them questions? Do you validate assumptions? You turn it into a conversation. Everybody knows by now that an interview should feel like a conversation, but even within a question itself, is it a conversation? Let me gather more data points, more information to be able to potentially get to the conclusion. Now, you may not necessarily get to the conclusion, but remember, I don't know about you guys, but back when we were young, we were kids, at least my teachers, they didn't necessarily grade me based off whether I managed to get to the actual result of that math equation. They were grading me based off every single step along the way. And yes, maybe I may have made a mistake somewhere along the way, and I carried that error all throughout until the end. But they were not grading me for the actual result. They were grading me for the thought process throughout, whether I knew what I was doing every step along that equation. So the best employers, I'm not going to say all of them, there are some really terrible employers out there, but the best employers, the ones that you really want to work for, are the ones that are appreciating how you're communicating, how you're collaborating with them, how you're expressing yourself, how you behave when you feel uncomfortable, right? And especially when they challenge you, right? When they challenge you and they push back, they want to see, how do you react? Do you push back? Do you get nervous? Do you get, do you change your behavior? Or are you still the same person and you're welcoming and you are trying again and you're trying to figure out the answer with them, right? So it's about that experience that truly matters, that will end up getting you the opportunity to work with them. And not only, and lastly, the last detail, it's not just about getting the job. And this is one thing that most applicants, most senior tech professionals and executives get wrong. This is not about getting a job offer, okay? I understand that switching jobs is about getting a job offer in the end, selecting one. However, if you really want to maximize your chances and be able to have the job that you really want, the career opportunity that you really want with your desired job conditions, the best way to go through this transition, through this switch job process, is by having multiple job offers lined up at the same time to understand what the market is willing to pay for someone like you. And then based off that new, what we call the ultimate position of power, you're employed and you have multiple job offers, now you can make these employers fight for you. Why? Because there's only one of you. So when multiple employers want you, now you can, respectfully, of course, tactfully, you can make them fight for you and give you so much more because they've already gone through the entire process. They have already sold to themselves and their executives that they want you. They're like, oh, we're going to get, oh my God. Now you throw a wrench and you say, I have these other job offers. There's a process, okay? I'm simplifying this, but you have other job offers. This person that sold to their executive team that they were going to get you, they want to get you, and they will do pretty much anything that they can to get you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I've seen countless time. It's not like when you don't know an answer to an interview question, like they're not just asking you that question, just see if you can answer every question, but also what do you actually do when you don't know an answer? And you're going to encounter that when you go into the role because especially if you're applying for a role that you don't know everything for, to your point, you're going to go in and you're not going to have idea on how to do certain things, even in that role. And so they're already pre-assessing you really on like, what is your mindset when you don't know something? How do you act? How do you react? And how do you lead that entire process? So that's brilliant. I want to kind of come back to maybe just on the interview or landing interviews part a little bit. Specifically, earlier we talked about it's not just your resume that's going to get you the interview. We talked about like the social proof, the networking. Maybe can we go a little bit into the mindset of like, who are you reaching out to and how are you doing that? Do you have any like specific examples? If it is, LinkedIn, maybe one or two tips on what people can apply or do right away where maybe, that they're not doing that right now.
Absolutely. So the question is, who do you reach out to first? Because you might have a list of dozens or hundreds of potential professionals that you want to reach out to. We have a sheet. It's a bit difficult to visualize here, but basically based off different metrics, we're able to sort and prioritize who to reach out to first. Okay. So who's this person? Is this person someone who is active on LinkedIn? Okay, maybe you want to give them a higher score because you know that, take a look at the profiles of different professionals. You know when they last posted, right? This is public information. You know when they last commented, and you can even potentially see when they were last online. So will you prioritize trying to reach out to someone who is barely active on LinkedIn versus someone who is constantly engaging, posting, commenting on their own posts and other people's posts? Now, are those people hiring? Are they leaders? Do they have a team? Are they currently working? How many followers they have? Are they thought leaders? What can they actually do for you? Now, here's the thing. If you reach out to someone, I take a lot of pride in replying to people. I love replying to people, but there are a lot of people who don't reply. And especially the more followers they have, more connections they have, the less likely that they will actually reply. So the big question is, how can you stand out so much that the person on the other end actually wants to connect with you? Why don't we challenge this? Typically, people are reaching out to others to try to get something in return. What if we turn the tables and we did something that made those others want to connect with us? So let's think about content creators. Why do people create content? In this world, we have this dopamine, effect that whenever we post something, we get likes and comments and reshares. They create a certain effect in our minds, in our brains. There's a chemistry behind it. So when you find that someone is a content creator, someone who is creating content constantly, the question is, why aren't you the first person to comment and like or engage on their posts meaningfully? Not just saying like, great, thanks for sharing, like a lot of people do, or most people do, or just putting a like, because they're not going to notice, they're not going to see who you are. But if you see that someone has taken the time to write something at length, right, rich, deep, their thoughts, their opinions, perspectives, or maybe they come on video and they share something. If you really want to stand out, take the time. This is not about how quickly you reply to something, but doing it with quality. Leave something that will make the other person think or feel, actually, more if you can make them feel something like, oh my God, wow, I will never forget this comment. Now, it takes a little bit of time to actually sit down and think how it is that you can contribute, but you want to create something on that other person that they actually reach out to you. Mm-hmm. They are the ones initiating that connection request. Right. Now you have turned the tables. Instead of you reaching out with an ask, now you are just accepting them and asking them. You can try it with me. When people send me a connection request, my response always is, hi, name of the person, how are you? How can I be of value to you? Okay? Why do I use the word value? Because I want the other person to perceive me as valuable, and I want the other person to tell me exactly how I can be of value to them. This is not about me. This is about them. Yeah. So tell me how I can serve you best. Okay? When they tell me, and I can tell them, oh, that's exactly what we do. Or let me ask you some more questions so that I can understand you better. When I give them the answer or I point them in the right direction, now they associate that as valuable. So you want to attract people to reach out to you. That's one of the things that we can do, or that we do. In fact, I just had someone in our program, Redeema. She is starting to go viral. She just started posting on LinkedIn, and she's going viral. There's no hacks. There's no nothing like, oh, we have a pod or we have a group and we're liking each other's. No. Organically, just giving out value. And now people are starting to ask her, can you be a speaker? Can you be in this group? Can you help us moderate? And that's how you open up new opportunities. So say yes, of course. Yesterday, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I had someone invite me. We actually met him at FHL. He invited me for lunch. Now, I didn't know exactly what I was going to get out of that lunch. I didn't know if I was going to pay for lunch. I didn't know if something was going to happen out of that lunch. But I said yes, because what's there to lose? There's a lot to win if you really are open to building genuine, meaningful relationships. And the one thing that I can promise you, and I'll finish with this, but for about 3 hours of that lunch, we started at noon and we almost finished at 3 o'clock. For about 99% of the time that we spent together, I spent it giving ideas. And I knew in my mind that maybe I was not going to get anything out of that lunch other than the respect and appreciation of the other person who invited me for lunch. Okay?
Right.
But guess what? In the last minute or the last few minutes, let's say 15 minutes, he was like, how can we work together? And I was like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out, but it wasn't clear to me yet how. And guess what? He suggested, he was like, you know what? I have 60,000 coaches around me that can potentially learn from you. Would that be something that you would be interested in doing, in potentially helping others mentor more effectively and serve others and grow their businesses? I was like, that's exactly what our next step will be.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to force it. I didn't have to push. I didn't have to even think about it. He came up with it himself. And probably one of the reasons why he came up with that is because he felt a sense of trust. Because I gave him openly, without holding back. I have this idea for you. I have this idea for you. You can do this. You can do that, without anything in return for me.
Yeah.
To the point that he's like, oh my God, I want to do something with this guy. So just give as much as possible. Don't think about, oh, that post doesn't have any likes or comments. I'm just going to watch from the sidelines. You know what? If you're the second to like and comment, you're too late.
Yeah.
Be the first one. Be a leader. Don't be a sheep that is following everybody else. Be the one who really matters. They will remember the first one, not the second one. Everybody remembers Neil Armstrong. Right? Do you remember the second one? Most people don't.
No.
Right?
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. I mean, that's it with anything, and that should apply to job searching and finding a meaningful career, in a sense that you're going to be really happy and fulfilled, right? Because I mean, end of the day, whether you're in tech and you're going for another role, or you're trying to break into tech, I mean, you're trying to do so that you feel like you're adding value. End of the day, that's where that motivation and joy in life really comes from. And I mean, for a job, like every person on LinkedIn, I mean, I don't even like the open to work tag on LinkedIn, because to me, it doesn't provide, here's my value proposition, here is how I can be a service to you. It screams like, I need a job, I'm desperate, I need a job, right?
Thank God you're saying this. You know how much hate I have received for pointing that out and
I have everyone take it off. I'm like, don't.
Yeah, but I have actually spoken about this openly, even though it's a feature that LinkedIn promotes, and you know, they stand behind. Listen, there are certain features that LinkedIn has actually developed and then taken away, removed from their platform. Okay.
Yeah, they're just testing it in the market. Also, they don't know, right?
Yeah. But open to work continues to be there. But this is the analogy to help people visualize why it doesn't help you. Okay.
Yeah.
It's twofold, maybe threefold. The first thing that I want people to know, or to be able to visualize, is this. If you go to a dealership, okay, a vehicle dealership, car dealership, you go to maybe Chevrolet, you go to Ford, right? It says for sale, they paint the numbers on the windshield, they open the hood, they put for sale, right? How unappealing is that? Let me compare this to something else to know how unappealing it is. Have you ever seen a Rolls Royce or a Ferrari with a for sale painted on the windshield?
Nope. They don't need to.
You don't need to. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. You can appreciate the value, right?
Mm-hmm.
So don't put a for sale sign on your forehead because you diminish your value.
Yeah.
This is human psychology. We want what we cannot have. So what I'm about to say is validated by employers and recruiters and HR professionals. Employers want those who are employed.
Exactly.
If you make it so easy for employers to recognize that you are unemployed, and yes, again, there will always be the odd one who says, "Oh, I much rather hire an unemployed because, okay, Mother Teresa, that's fine, okay, that's why."
Yeah.
But at large, the actual behavior of employers is they rather take someone away from somebody else. They're willing to pay for that. And when they speak to recruiters, they actually say, "Please bring me someone who is employed."
Right.
That's why recruiters value more those who are employed. So that's one thing. The second thing, from a technical standpoint, is that you do not need to put open to work on your forehead or your chin for the system, for the technology, LinkedIn in this case,
To recognize it, yeah.
to be able to see you. You can actually leverage the exact same functionality without adopting the watermark on your profile photo.
Absolutely.
No one can, sure, people can see that you are open to work, which makes it incredibly unappealing. But if you want to be found by recruiters who are searching for open to work on the back end on LinkedIn Recruiter, they're not searching by the actual watermark. They're searching by a Boolean search. There's an actual setting. So you can enable that without enabling the open to work watermark, which to a lot of people bring a lot of shame. What you should be ashamed about is not about being an employee. What you should be ashamed about is not questioning every single thing that you're doing.
Yeah, totally. So kind of to go back to some of the resume stuff really quick here, just two things I wanted to ask you. One, just on the layout, like, obviously you don't have to go very specific into it, but like,
I can. If you ask me to go specific, I'll go specific.
Maybe we can do a part two, and we can totally go more in. But like, what's like an ideal layout that you've, obviously have encouraged your mentees that have landed, so many interviews? That's one. And then second, I know we talked about earlier, looking at patterns, looking at data, looking at, multiple job openings or job description, and kind of catering your resume based on that. Kind of also help me understand for these, how many bullet points, or are you putting similar bullet point in each of your roles? How far do you go down? Maybe just like few tips around that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Part one is this. There are not multiple resume templates that we use. We've been leveraging the exact same resume template for the last 7 years. Okay. The exact same one. It has not evolved. And it's very simple. Those of you watching, listening, take notes. It's very simple. Whatever it is that you're using right now, if it looks fancy, what does fancy mean? If your resume looks beautiful and you're like, oh, it's so appealing, these colors and this layout and whatnot, you are missing the mark, 100%.
Nope.
Right?
Yeah.
The resume, the hiring software out there, and there are more than 200 of them, some will be able to read it. But the vast majority will not. Why? Because they don't have the budget to be able to actually take into account all the variations of whatever layout people come up with. They have not developed them to the same extent. So we want to go back to something that we learned in elementary school, the common denominator. Remember fractions, common denominator? So what can all hiring software actually read, both fully and accurately? Is just plain text and bullet points. That's it. So my recommendation, my advice, strong advice to everyone is, if your resume looks, let's say this, if your resume is not working and you really want to ensure that your resume starts working and that you're taking steps towards landing interviews, is go to Google Docs, not Word. Go to Google Docs, free. Open a brand new document. Don't change anything. Don't change the margins. Don't add a header, don't add a footer, don't do anything other than just plain text and bullet points. Now, caveat, when you do this, it doesn't mean that it will actually fix your entire problem, okay? It's like, imagine you have a Ferrari, you're a Ferrari, okay? And you have different issues with your vehicle as to why it's not running, okay? You have no fuel, you have blown your engine, you have no battery. Because they fix the battery, it doesn't necessarily mean that your vehicle is now going to start running, okay? That you can put in the street. But first step, work with a resume that can actually be read both fully and accurately by the hiring software. So how do you do that? Brand new document, blank document, don't touch anything. The only thing that you're allowed to bring in is plain text and bullet points, okay? Now, there are a few sections that you can have on your resume. It's very simple. You have your contact information at the top, you have your summary, you have your work experience, you have your relevant skills, you have your other interests. I can talk about that if you want in a moment. And then you have your education. And then, of course, if you have some side projects or other certifications, you can include them under education, or you can have a certifications section if you want as well. But basically, in 2 pages, you need to be able to fit in your work experience and the sections in this order. A lot of professionals, I see it on a regular basis, they throw in a whole bunch of skills at the top, they put the education first, a bunch of different things that it's made up by them. We've done this more than 1,000 times. Everybody follows this format, people start landing interviews immediately. And I'll tell you something. We believe in this so much, and we see the results on a daily basis, that when people want to work with us, we don't first teach them how to do this when they really want to be mentored fully by us, because they will land the interview so quickly that they will not know yet how to convert those interviews into job offers fast and how to negotiate. So we say, wait, don't work on your resume first. Don't work on your LinkedIn profile first. Let's work on your interview skills and your negotiation skills, because you probably have experienced that a lot of recruiters or HR professionals or hiring managers, they ask you, how much are you currently making? How much do you want to make? And when you start answering these questions, you shoot yourself on the foot. And now you locked yourself down to a certain number that may not be necessarily as much as you could have actually made. And a lot of people probably are thinking, but Brian, they don't allow me to go through the process unless I actually tell them what it is that I want to make. There are different ways to be able to avoid having to give the actual answer. You don't want to be discussing compensation right now. Imagine, I'll give you an analogy. Imagine that I came to my first date with my wife and I sat at the table and I said, okay, so what are we naming our kids? It's like, dude, it's our first date.
Slow down.
I guess I'm going to just walk away from here, right? Yeah. You're a creep, right? So makes no sense to talk about compensation. And I know employers might be thinking, well, I don't want to be entertaining the idea of working with someone who's asking for too much. But forget about employers. Employers have no idea what they're doing. Recruiters, HR professionals, hiring managers. Let's talk about you. Why it makes no sense for you to share how much you want to make. First, let's talk about the 3 different scenarios. Let's say that you ask for too much, okay? They never got a chance to actually meet you and get to know you and see your value and potentially justify in their minds that they would be willing to pay more for you. Why? Because you asked for too much, or what they perceived as too much. What do we consider something too much? Something that we didn't get to grasp the value of. Oh, we're willing to pay $2,500 for an iPhone. Right? Like, I'm sure you could have purchased a Nokia for $100, but we're willing to pay for things when we see the value in them. But because it was so fast, the gatekeepers, the recruiters, are like, oh, you're asking for too much. Oh, okay, move on. Let's go to the next.
What do you do though when you're applying for jobs and you do have to put a number?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Okay, hold on. Don't let me forget about that. I will answer that, but I don't want to forget about this. I'll
okay, go ahead with the other 2 steps.
I'll answer this. So if you ask for too much, too early, you get disqualified. Basically, you will never hear from them again. Second, if you ask for what you think is fair, you will, once you get the job and you try to negotiate with them, you cannot negotiate with them because you already locked yourself down to a certain number. And if you try to negotiate with them, then the employers, they get quite upset. They're like, you told me that you wanted this number. I gave you this number. Now you ask me for more. That's not what I wanted. right? So
Right.
you lose credibility, you lose their
Mm.
trust and their respect, potentially
Yeah.
costing you even the job offer. Okay.
Right.
And if it doesn't cost you the job offer, now you walk into the job, but not on the right foot, on the left foot, because you upset that relationship. You sour the relationship. Now, the third one is that you might be asking for too little, and two things can happen out of this one. If you're asking for too little, one thing could be that the employer actually abuses you, right? They do this all the time, and they take advantage of you, and they hire you, and they pay you too little. And then you realize, oh my God, my colleagues are making so much more, or other professionals in the industry are making so much more. I'm not doing myself a service here. I need to switch jobs again. Now you have to go through the entire job search process all over again. Or alternatively, when something is too cheap, people don't value it. So if they believe that you're too cheap, you're not of the caliber that they were expecting because you couldn't value yourself, they may not even want to interview you either. So either option is bad for you also. So I'll give you an example, and then I'll answer with regards to what you asked me. John, one of our mentees, the job that he was interviewing for, which he was not interested in, he was like, they pay $100,000 to $140,000. It was the very first interview that we landed. Okay, we found out that that was the range. He's like, I was making 140,000. I really wanted to make a lot more money. That's why I came to you. I said, John, remember that I taught you how to interview and how to negotiate? Go through the process just to practice, just to see how you do, so that you don't have to practice with a job that you really care for, right? Listen, when we date, we don't marry the very first person that we date, right? Like, we want to see, we want to practice. So I said, John, just go. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. Long story short, he walks. So again, the range was 100 to 140,000 bucks. He walks away with $275,000 plus $800,000 in stock options. And John says to me, Brian, I know that in 3 to 4 years' time, when this company goes public, this $800,000 worth of stock options will be worth about 10 million bucks. How do you go from 100 to 140 to 275 plus $800,000 in stock options? By not discussing compensation in the beginning, because by not saying what you're expecting, because John could have easily said, well, I want 150, right? Let's say that John wanted to get some more, right?
Yeah.
When you say the number, you're setting the ceiling. They will bring you down from there. When you allow them to be the first ones to speak, they're setting the floor. You bring them up from there. So he didn't say the number. He let them, during the interview, when he met with the CEO asked him, John, how much do you want to make? And John followed the framework, and he said, you've seen the value that I can bring to the organization. You've seen my experience. We've been dating, we've been interviewing for a bit. I trust that you are a fair organization. I trust that you will make me a fair offer based on of the value that I can bring to the table. So he put it on them, and they were the ones who came back with $275,000.
Wow. And so even with recruiter, when they're asking you, like, what's your rate or what salary range are you looking for? Are you coaching people then to, I guess, what are you having them say?
Yeah, exactly the same thing. So here's the thing. I'll give you one example.
Yeah.
There was a VP of, I don't know which domain, a VP who was basically, she had contacted one of our mentees, Adriana, and she asked her point blank, basically on the email, how much do you want to make?
Yeah.
And Adriana, talked to her and I coached her on this. I was like, hey, reply this message. I'm not kidding. She copied and pasted the exact same thing that I gave her. And basically the essence of the message was, I know that you don't know me yet. We don't know each other well yet. However, I want you to know that I'm looking for the right career opportunity. I'm looking to contribute to the team, to the organization, to wake up happy, excited, fulfilled, to know that I'm making a positive impact in the community, in the world, to love what I do. So I want you to know that I'm not concerned about compensation. I'm not chasing dollars here. I'm not like job hopping, just chasing money. I want to really find a career opportunity in an organization where I can grow. And I know
Yeah.
that, again, I know that you don't know me that well yet, but I
Mm-hmm.
promise you that I will not waste your time. If we get to know each other
Mm,
throughout this process and we really want to work together, compensation will not be an issue. It will not be an impediment.
I love it.
I'm
That's
not kidding you
brilliant.
about this, and I have proof about this. 5 minutes later, 5 minutes, I'm not kidding. She was like, "You're exactly the type of person that we're looking for."
Mm,
Yeah, she had not even attended an interview yet. The
right.
VP that was looking to hire someone like her, she was like, "I'm sold," and she ended up getting the job.
Wow.
I
Love it.
wanted to address one thing. Sorry,
Mm,
I almost forget. Almost forgot. This is not about saying things throughout the
yeah.
hiring process, whether it is prior to the pre-screening or during the pre-screening or during the interview, that
Mm-hmm.
just sound nice. You
Yeah.
still have to walk the talk. Like if you
Yeah.
really care to make a positive impact and empower your team and inspire them and lift them up and so on and so forth, when you join the organization, you have to really walk your talk. You have to really do the things that they perceive that you are going to do. And and this is why you cannot be lying when they ask you during the interview, so what's your experience with this? Or do you have any experience with this? And you say yes. And then it turns out on day one, especially if you switch jobs, are you going to put
Mm-hmm.
your job on the line and
Mm-hmm.
pretend just because you wanted to make some more money, pretend that you actually had some experience that you didn't? Eventually the truth will come out.
Right.
You can't just lie blatantly and just say, oh yeah, I have experience, and then not acknowledge the fact that you don't, but that you can pick it up. It
Yeah.
will be pretty easy for you to pick it up. And just like Vivek
Mm-hmm.
was saying earlier, if you give me a couple of hours, I can figure this out.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Maybe let me ask you one last question, and then
Yeah.
I would love to do obviously part two. There's just so much that we can talk about here. You've obviously done the work and you've helped so many people, and it shows true testament here. And you probably get this a lot. I get this a lot. When people are just kind of saying, I am not having any luck. What do you say to those folks?
Okay. Look, I believe that empathy is,
Mm-hmm.
maybe underrated. So
Yeah.
publicly, right, to try to
Mm-hmm.
captivate people's attention, I can say this
Mm-hmm.
about the bingo or casino or buying a
Mm-hmm.
lottery ticket, right?
Mm-hmm.
Listen, you don't go to a doctor to be made fun of, right? Like you have a
Yeah.
problem, you have some pain, you want someone who
Mm-hmm.
puts themselves in your shoes and understands you. So as
Right.
a doctor in this domain, my job is to guide people and to try to find the actual root of the problem. So when they are saying that they don't have any luck, what I need to figure out is, are you struggling to land the interviews? Or are you struggling to convert those interviews into job offers? So
Mm-hmm.
if I find out that you've done enough to try to land interviews, okay, you've applied long enough, you've applied to enough jobs, what are you doing or not doing that is potentially costing you? So happy to take a look at your resume. Okay, take a look at your resume. I'm not kidding. I reply to people immediately. I'm like, please immediately stop applying with this resume. They're like, why? This resume, and I'm not kidding. Like anyone can tell. You can go on ChatGPT, you can go on Google. It will tell you the exact same thing. So anything that I ever claim or that I state, I can back it up with actual content out there that I didn't write. This
Yeah.
resume cannot be read by the hiring software. Oh, why not? Oh, it's quite lengthy to actually explain this on via DM private message, but I've created a masterclass where I explain this in detail, okay? Or a challenge or a course that we have. So that I can tell you. The contents themselves, yeah, I see some inconsistencies, but they're most likely they're not necessarily the reason as to why you're not landing interviews. So tell me something. How many applications have you submitted over the last 6 months? I'm not kidding you. Some people tell me 10, 15 applications. I'm like,
Mm.
listen, you've seen how
That
many
might be
applicants
the
there are.
problem.
There are dozens, if not hundreds of applicants. If you don't have a
Even in 20,
strategy,
30 minutes. Yeah, 20, 30 minutes of
yeah, yeah,
a
for
job
sure.
being posted. Yeah.
Or sooner or faster. Listen, I compare job searching, job switching, going through the hiring process to two things. One of them is dating. Like
Mm-hmm.
really, there are so many commonalities between dating and job searching, a lot in terms of
Mm-hmm.
human behavior, psychology, and so on. And the other one
Yeah.
is chess playing, like chess
Okay.
tournaments.
Yeah.
So you need to be a few steps ahead, a few moves ahead of your opponents.
Yeah.
You really need to have a strategy. No chess grandmaster goes to sit down and they're like, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
They really are serious about this. They want to be the grandmaster multiple times and be the number one. They're incredibly competitive. So in a world in which there's so much competition right now, whether you like it or not, whether you're competitive or not, if you're
Mhm.
looking to switch jobs, take it seriously. Don't
Yeah.
just, well, let's hope for the best. In the meantime, you're stressing out, you're feeling miserable because they're overworking you, underpaying you, abusing you, you're in a toxic environment, your wife or husband, or they're telling you that you're in the wrong place and that they want to live better. Yeah, you don't have work-life balance, whatever the reason might be that makes you miserable.
Yeah.
If you're really going to put in the time, put it, but really get somewhere. This is not, imagine you're a Ferrari again, but you're in the jungle and you're spinning your
Mhm.
wheels. You're not going anywhere. You might
Right.
be the Ferrari, but you're just in the wrong. You don't have a
Environment.
strategy. You want to go from here to there, take the highway, go on the
Yeah.
track. Don't go through the jungle. The Ferrari should not
Mhm.
go through the jungle.
Yeah.
So, so the key is understand first of all what the problem is. If you're
Mm.
not receiving the job offers after you interview, it's not because of your resume. It's not because of your LinkedIn profile. It's because you don't know how to interview effectively. If you cannot even land the interviews, then one of
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
elements could be, we need to figure it out, could be your resume.
Yeah. Resume and other social profiles that we talked
Oh, for
about,
sure.
right? Because it's
Resume,
not just that. Yeah.
social profile, your ability to network and build meaningful
Mhm.
relationships because you have
Yeah.
to. Again, easy apply is not enough anymore.
Yeah.
You have to build meaningful relationships. And lastly, your strategy on how you apply for jobs. So
Yeah.
applying for one job, like actually, I was going to tell you this earlier. Our mentees don't actually even read the job descriptions. Let me say
Mm.
that again. Let me say that again. Our mentees don't even
Yeah.
read the job descriptions. Let me explain why.
Mhm.
Once you do this analysis of what the market is looking for, let
Yeah.
me ask you a question. What advantage does it give you to read a job description versus just doing apply, easy apply?
Yeah.
Why read the job description now? If you can easy
Mhm.
apply, find someone and send the right message, the right template to that
Right.
person to start to build a meaningful relationship, if they actually get back to you or when they get back to you, at that
Mhm.
moment you put in the time to read the job description, but not beforehand. It doesn't give you any advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
I'll give you one last example. Mitra.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of times I've been asked during the interviews and prior to the interviews, why do you want this job?
Yeah.
It doesn't come down to the actual specifics of what I will be doing. I never go
Mm.
down the rabbit hole of justifying why I want that
Why you're
particular
good
job.
for it. Mhm.
It all comes down to the confidence with which I speak to them,
Mm.
helping them feel or think and feel that I
Mm.
know exactly why I want that job. So it comes down to
Mm.
justifying and saying, because it is so well aligned with my career path and interests that I have
Mhm.
no doubt that with all the knowledge, skills, experience, expertise, and education that I have acquired throughout my career, I can make a massive positive impact in the team and the organization at large.
Yeah.
I didn't say a word about the specifics of that job. I don't even know what the job
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
I know the job because I have clarity in terms of the role, but I don't actually care about that. I just need to give them the
Mhm.
confidence that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, true. And then I mean, I feel like, end of the day, companies and hiring managers, I mean, they're human beings, right? Like they wanna feel like, okay, them coming into this role, yes, like obviously you can show confidence, but then you going into that role, they also want you to feel like it matches with your career path and you're gonna come to work happy and satisfied. Because if you go to work wanting to be there, wanting to make a difference, and you already go with that intrinsic motivation in a sense because you know the value that you're going to provide, and two, you know that the organization values what you're providing, And if you can convey that in a way, I mean, that's what they want to also see. I mean, I'm not saying all organizations, but I would say most of the organizations out there care about their employees. They want to retain their employees. They want their employees to be happy, and they want to hear that from you. I feel like in a way. So I love that, being able to communicate that conveys on why they should hire you.
And just for everybody listening, for you, but especially for everybody listening, watching, I want everybody to know that this is not about, again, it's not about deceiving. It's not about selling smoke to people and just pretending.
Yeah.
It's a certain attitude that you need to embrace if you want to be perceived differently. So it's not about, oh, this is an act during the interview, but then the real me comes out. No. That's really, oh my God, like I could stay here for hours talking about different examples and how this applies to every walk in life. But there's a reason why when I go to Starbucks, I get free cookies. There's a reason why when we were in Vegas, not long ago, just a few weeks ago, I managed to get free dessert at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant without deceiving, without laughing.
Yeah, I remember you telling me the story.
Right?
Yeah.
It's nuts. And everybody around the table, all my friends there, they were like, "This is your birthday?" Because they came with a candle and singing happy birthday. And I was like, no. And the waiter knew that it was not my birthday and he was still willing to bring me free dessert. So it's about really embracing a different way of communicating, a different way of, you know,
how you're making them feel in a sense.
Yeah. And you know what? The vast majority of professionals, they feel so intimidated throughout the interview process that they're just waiting there for all the questions, right? Oh, I'm talking to a VP or I'm talking to a C level. They don't feel comfortable. But here's the thing. If you are able to bring, and you should be able to bring your values and your character, what you stand for, and connect on a personal level and find something of meaning, something in common. Oh, you went there, or you like to play this sport, or you have kids like I do. Like, bring those. Of course, there are certain items that you will never speak during an interview, right? Religion, you're not going to talk about politics, right? But there are other things that make us unique. And remember, again, back in the day when we were kids and we were captains of different sports or different teams in, let's say, gym class, right? Who were we choosing to play with us in our team? The ones that we liked the most, the ones that we trusted the most. We were not looking, or we were not choosing the best athletes. And we continue to grow and we continue to behave in the exact same manner. We will rather hire someone that we like and trust than someone who is much better qualified.
Absolutely. And Brian, like, I've seen this over and over again with our students, right? Like, I have students who were bartenders. I have students who are like DJs and, you know, did random jobs. And those are the people that I've seen get offers over and over again. And they literally got hired because, like, your personality fit with our team and we were looking for, versus I have individuals who have years of experience and they've gone through multiple rounds and still struggle to land offers. And I know why. And it's literally our communication skills. It's literally the way they're answering interview questions and the way that they're carrying themselves through the entire interview process. So I love it. I love everything that you're saying.
I love everything. I was going to say, but you say it first. I love everything that you stand for and everything that you do to make a positive impact in other people's lives and careers.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
So I am a huge fan. And the fact that we met.
And you're a huge fan, and I've learned so much today from you, Brian. And I am excited to continue having these conversations. And
Absolutely.
maybe we'll do a part 2. I feel like just on interviewing, doing a part 2, it's going to benefit so many people. It's going to touch so many people's lives. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation today. And maybe you can kind of tell them. I mean, I'll put it on the bio where people can kind of find you. I know obviously LinkedIn is your home. So I'll definitely put your LinkedIn URL in there. But anything else, any last thoughts, anything you want to share before we close out?
Just, first of all, thank you to you and to Vivek. I appreciate you immensely. And to everyone listening, just ask yourself how you can stand out so much that it becomes so easy for anyone to go out of their way for you, for anyone to choose you, for anyone to want to spend their time with you, which is precious. For anyone to remember you, for anyone, it's not about what you say, I mean, you may not necessarily remember everything that I said, but hopefully you felt something different. So ask yourself how you can create a similar experience in front of others. Not necessarily, I mean, sure, here we're talking about job switching, right? And applying for jobs and talking to recruiters and HR professionals and hiring managers and the interview process and so on. But this applies absolutely everywhere. Like
Yeah.
the bartender at Starbucks, the waiter at Gordon Ramsay's, the stranger in the mall, or a driver. How can you really create a memorable experience where the person is like, wow, thank you for adding value to my life, even at the first encounter, the first time you meet them. So
Yeah.
challenge yourself to try to make that happen.
I
I'll
love
leave you with
that. We are going to start with that question next time. How do you leave a lasting impression on people? So we're going to start that podcast in our next episode. We'll do that. But thank you so much, Brian. I got a ton of value. Hopefully all of you got a lot of value. I know you did if you go through this and obviously implement a lot of things that Brian shared. So with that, we will see you next episode.
All right, that's a wrap with this episode. Thank you for listening till the end. We hope these podcasts are providing value on your Agile journey. If you haven't visited our website, theagilecoach.com, we highly suggest you for other courses and supporting material on your journey. You can also get access to our self-paced courses or learn more about the live training that we provide to become a Scrum Master, Product Owner, Product Manager. With that, we will see you on the next episode. Love and best wishes from the Agile Coach.